it up. But my goal today is just kind of share with you a bit of data and AI and the impact that we're seeing across commerce, brands, and marketing. And enough about me. I did want to just mention I do co-host a podcast, which is a lot of fun. And we're actually a top 10 podcast globally in the context of consumer brands, retail, and restaurant. And we cover data and AI almost every podcast. So it's a bit of a North America sort of bent, but we are global in nature. We have global guests, global brands. And if you're bored to tears, you're just bored to tears and you don't have anything else to do, you can listen to our podcast, put it on 1.5, and hopefully you'd enjoy that. So I just wanted to call that out. So what I wanted to do is I want to share a big picture, kind of what's happening across the world in commerce. And a big portion of that is going to be data and AI. And then I just want to share with you kind of some of the key themes we're seeing across brands and marketing with respect to data and AI. And then what's next? Who knows what's next? But we definitely have a thesis on that because we're working with so many brands on future back planning, et cetera. And then we'll kind of wrap it up. So maybe after point two, Vanessa, Alex, we can take a quick break. So,
Absolutely.
is that cool? Okay. So, future commerce. Let me just kind of set this up. So, across the world, if you said, tell me, Barry, about global commerce, which would be retail, restaurants, last mile providers, just like commerce, and more than just like Tesco and Walmart. Independent retailers as well, which is certainly big in your area of the world. What I would say is there's sort of four areas or generations of commerce that are operating around the world, and I want to spend most of my time on era four. But just know that era one, sort of traditional trade, informal retail, that's still about half the commerce on the planet, believe it or not. And it's really important, and it's being totally disrupted by digital and AI. So many of these independent retailers are re-platforming onto Alibaba or Flipkart or Amazon, and it's just amazing how they move from really generation one almost to generation four in a matter of weeks. I've seen this all over the world when I was with Coca-Cola, and it was just amazing. And I just want you to know a lot of big brands that you know well are all investing more so in India than maybe any other country, just because of the growth in the middle class and what's happening in India, and a bit less in China because there's some structural headwinds in China. Still an attractive market, but we're just seeing India kind of play a bigger role with that. Era two is when we started to see modern trade. That's McDonald's and Tesco and Carrefour, Walmart, Aldi, kind of marching across the world, building these more consistent modern formats. I think the big headline here is we're just seeing a lot more store brand infiltration, which is a real problem for national brands. And kind of a demarcation point, really, as you think about branding. It's pretty interesting. Era three is when we started to see e-commerce. That's kind of the early 2000s. And just so you know, e-commerce is still sort of a problem for retailers. Most retailers are not profitable with e-commerce. And that's why they're moving to marketplaces, 3P sellers, where they can extend the assortment. And it's definitely something that can drive ancillary revenue and better assortment for the consumer. But era four is what I wanted to talk a little bit about more, and that's just where we're heading. So we're moving into a world as you head to 2030 where we're going to adopt the agentic web, and that's a very big transformation for brands, for consumers. We're just in the very early stages of it. It's moving, respectfully, the fastest in the US. There's no question about that. And it's transformative. I mean, almost every day I am on a WebEx like this with at least two typically large legacy brands. It could be, brands that are in your home, or maybe publishers that you read every day, and their world is being completely changed, and largely because we're still going to market to the UX, and we call that, the user experience. That would be a human, but increasingly we're going to market to and have to kind of work with AX, and that's the agent experience. You're just going to hear that term a lot more going forward. Tell me about your AX, your agentic experience, your agent experience for your consumer, because so much more of everything is going to be executed, by agents, and we're already starting to see this in the US. So that leads you to sort of this, AI agent economy, which is really interesting. We're going to talk about that today. And as a part of all this, just know that more of everything in the world is just being automated. And if you think about retail for a minute, Coca-Cola still shows up in Bentonville, Arkansas, or over in London with ASDA and calls on retailers. We still meet human to human, but it's happening less so because so much more of daily activities are being automated where I don't have to meet so much with that merchant over at Aldi because the data and AI and algorithms are leading so much of the business. And so more of the decisions that I used to kind of work with the human on, like assortment or pricing or promotional calendar, et cetera, is automated. Not all of it, but much more of it is automated. So it's clearly a different world we're heading into. We often think about it as agentic AI driven commerce, and it's certainly different than kind of what we're doing today. So in the context of CPGs, for them, those big consumer brands, uh, what's been helping them grow, just speaking about that sector, is certainly, price increases. And so that's kind of how a lot of these consumer brands have been innovating. But, that's not going to last for long. And they're being completely disrupted by data and AI. That's my bigger point here. But beyond inflation, all of these big consumer brands that you know well are being disrupted the most by probably technology. There's other factors, but that's really one of the biggest. So what I wanted to show you here is just like how a typical large legacy company is dealing with it. Because you're seeing the magnitude of disruption increasing along with the speed of disruption like we've never seen it before. So companies still have a traditional operating plan. They're going to make earnings every quarter. They're going to pay their employees. They're going to give dividends, to their investors. And this is still happening down here. But more and more companies are spending 10, 20, 30% of their time and talent working on a new business model. You have to, because the business model you have today really won't work in most cases in 2030 and 2035. So you kind of have to say, what's my transformation gap? Is it modern health? Is it affordability? Is it digital? But typically, data and AI is one of the biggest factors that's causing disruption, in your industry. And so today, largely, I'm talking about retail, restaurant, sort of consumer brands, but this would apply really to most industries that you kind of think about. So, because of this, I just want you to know more and more companies are moving on to big transformational initiatives. In fact, a lot of companies are hiring what they call CTOs. And so that's a company, or chief transformation officer. They don't want like a timid transformation because of all this data and AI disruption. And companies know they have to move faster. You have to move faster in the world we're heading into, and you have to have bigger, bolder bets. Incremental changes are nice. We still want those, but that's really not the path to success. And IBM did one of the biggest studies recently talking to 2,000 CEOs around how are you preparing your organization for essentially 2030 and then out to 2035. And largely it involves upskilling in a very big way with data and AI that leads to new products and service innovations, business model innovation, as we're talking about, and all of that is underpinned by investments in data and AI. That's probably, on the balance sheet for most companies where they're spending the most is technology. And there's a lot of metrics that these companies are looking at to see that pay out. But this is sort of a good one pager for how companies, a bank, anyone would view the world and how you kind of have to prepare for the future. And we spend a lot of time at Kantar helping companies make that transition and future-proofing their business. Just quickly, if you said, what are like nine or 10 disruptions out there that every company is facing and brands, retailers, restaurants? I would say there's more than this. There's a lot more than this. But this is kind of, I think a lot of it. And again, data and AI is a very big part of it. And almost every day we're working on this across teams and customers. But there's some other issues here you can see with affordability, micro brands, modern health that are all impacting all of us as consumers, but also as brands. So because of this, I just wanted to recommend a book to you that we have a lot of our clients reading. It's a book that's rather kind of old. It's a bit dated. It was written by Clayton Christensen, but he's still referenced. And if you don't want to read the book, I would definitely encourage you to download, a couple pages on this or watch a 10-minute video. We still use it today at Cantor along with a lot of our clients. And the big issue is disruption comes to every industry. It's just how you deal with it. And you have to move earlier than later. If you're not moving quickly, as these strategic structural disruptions like data and AI happen, it's going to be a very painful future. And so just know the lifespan of a Fortune 500 company back in the 60s, when I was born, was around 60 years. Today, it's less than 15. So companies, the lifespan of a corporation is just, it's radically less because of all the changes we're seeing. And we know that data and AI are going to play a bigger role in that going forward. So, with that as a setup, let me talk a bit about how AI is impacting commerce, and then maybe we can have a pause and talk about some of this if you want. So, a lot of the clients that we work with, the companies that you would know well, they're kind of, aligning their organization and their culture to this idea of the law of uneven AI distribution. And that simply means that, the value of AI isn't obviously being distributed equally across every company. It depends. And really, it largely depends on at least three areas. One is your understanding of data and AI in your industry with your consumers, and then obviously your company. Then access, you have to have the tools. Almost everyone now that we work with, has a CRM system, like a Microsoft Copilot, where just these AI assistants and soon AI agents are a part of your daily sort of working routine. And if you're not doing that now, you want to move to that as best you can. We can talk about that. And then as an organization, you just have to have acceptance of this technology, culturally really leaning in here in a very big way and investing in it. But you want your associates upskilling. Someone like DMI is critical. You want to understand what's happening, access the tools, and then have acceptance and change your workflows. And I think if you said, what's one company that's doing a very good job of that, a legacy company, I'd say Walmart. Whoa, so impressed with how they're really transforming the entire organization for data and AI. This is a really important framework. If you only kept one slide from our discussion today, this is the one I would keep. Every company we work with, if you said, how do I get to competitive advantage with data and AI? Like, how do we do that as a company? Almost everyone in the kind of that's studying this and learning about this entire topic would say you kind of want to follow a map like this. And so I'm just going to cover this very quickly. At times, we can spend like 2 hours on this slide and we show lots of examples. We're not doing that today, but the most important factor in this entire topic is data. You don't hear me personally say AI a lot. You'll hear me say data and AI because they're so dependent on each other. And really, AI is driven really by the data assets. And so that's really largely where the competitive advantage is your data. And more companies are moving to data as their business model. It's a big change, especially for publishers, like the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, et cetera. This is a monumental change with how you go to market. But this is where your own proprietary data is a competitive advantage. Then you want to overlay, obviously, AI and automation, large language models, and agentic capabilities. But most of that you can just buy off the shelf. Anthropic, Perplexity, Amazon, Google. We can go on and on. So the competitive advantage is not really as much there because it's just accessible to everyone. And then you have, a lot of these systems are sort of open source. So, it's kind of free to some degree. So data is still the biggest moat. But then three is really important. And I just want you to know, as your organization and as you work with clients that are moving down the path and investing more in data and AI, you must move quicker. Your organization has to move faster because you're getting all these predictive insights, real-time insights. And if you can't move quickly, like really fast, like radically fast from where you've been, you don't want to do all this because the whole point, in some regard, is just moving faster, more like an entrepreneur. And so most of the companies we work with are upskilling here. They're teaching their associates how to be entrepreneurs, literally. They want to have all or much of the decision making on the front lines and people just owning the business, running the business. And largely, you want to reduce the time from the data you get to the decision. In the old world, it was here's the data and then we're going to send some emails. We're going to have a few WebExes. We're going to have some meetings. We're going to run it up the flagpole to the most senior people. We'll wait for the decision to come down. No one's doing that anymore. That is really an old model. There's still some of that happening, but you really want the data and then the decision. And in many cases, that's being automated by AI agents. Early days here, but we're already seeing it. And then lastly, with all of this, you have to have what's called a culturation. And that means your people are buying into this. And you approach all of this in terms of communicating with your associates in a glass box, not a black box. Because if you're not transparent and just basically having integrity with your associates around what's going to happen, all of this can fail. And we've seen a lot of companies that kind of try to, sort of communicate this in a black box, and we don't want to tell everybody everything, and some of the jobs are going to be impacted. That does not work out. You really have to have a transparent approach. So big picture, the real competitive advantage in this entire topic is data. Then secondly, I would say speed, and especially acculturation. You just have to buy into where we're going with Generation 4 commerce and marketing. So that's kind of a good one pager. And then just a few slides and we'll stop here. If you said, well, what's the value sort of proposition look like for a lot of industries? And I would say most companies are investing in data and AI for at least three reasons. And there's reasons beyond this, but you want to improve your sort of core capabilities. I can improve my HR function. I can improve my innovation, product development in so many ways, faster for sure. I want to have a better product or service. Like I can for sure have better consumer experience scores. I can deliver a vastly superior product versus 2 years ago because of all this technology. And that's kind of a reason I'm going to invest so much. And then ultimately, the consumer or the guest or the client has to have a better experience. So these are sort of three key vectors where most of the use cases seem to be going. And I just wanted to share with you one example from each, and then let's have a little chat about some things, and then I'll finish it up today. But I did want this to be discussional. So as you think about enterprise capabilities, I think what Walmart's doing, for example, with their new AI tools, and really now they're moving to agent tools to help their buyers and merchants is just amazing. So, they have something called Wally over there. And if you're a merchant, and let's say you're a merchant for beverages, this is like your coworker. It's so much a part of everything you're doing. It's kind of a new digital species in a way, that's helping you, change the workflow, automate the workflow, and it's leveraging all of Walmart's vast data assets along with supplier data assets, partners, et cetera. It's to currently in one form of this is in sort of a chat style on demand interface that they're using that helps the merchant with everything they're doing. And it's just a real partner. And so you can see I highlighted in red here just some of the benefits. And, we've been working with this, important client for over many years. And it's just for sure helping those merchants move faster on key trends. So if something's happening on TikTok this week, that that retail store can respond tomorrow to that. That's a whole different way of going to market. It's also just helping merchants with out of stocks, making sure they have the right prices, and a lot of this is prescriptive. In other words, if I'm the merchant today, there's this tool you log on to it, and as soon as you log on, the basically I'm just going to call it an agent will have recommendation for your task today. It may say, hey, I ran this pricing analysis on this category for you. We're we have some market opportunity, change the pricing, and I'm recommending you do this at 2 p.m. today and have that pricing run for 6.5 days. I mean, it's just pretty amazing. So there's still a human like on the loop, or you can call it in the loop, but definitely agentic capability is a big part of helping you do your job better. So because of that, the merchant's spending less time like in Excel sheets and sort of tactical drudgery work like that, and they're able to spend more time, which Walmart wants, on strategic, creative, innovative workflows that can drive higher value creation. And generally, humans want this type of work. They don't want to be in Excel all day. They want to be coming up with new solutions that can drive revenue and a better guest experience. And so I would say so many companies, they don't have to be a retailer, are moving to this sort of AI generative AI, soon AI agent capability to help associates with their work. In the consumer space, as you think about new products and services, this is just one company that is really helping a lot of challenger brands, like smaller CPG brands, and in some cases, helping them have better research and development capabilities than maybe some of the bigger CPGs. And the company's called CPG Radar. We've done some work with them. And so they offer incredible data sets on the entire sort of industry. Their models, their AI models have been trained specifically on this industry, and major brands, big brands, small brands, takes into account global uh, commerce as well. And it just leads companies to more scientific, faster innovation than you would have in the past, leveraging incredible proprietary data sets. And it's moving innovation cycles to, in some cases, we've seen it in 6 weeks, where it used to take like, I don't know, 11 months. Before that, it was 18 months, just moving to faster innovation, more sort of even more foresight-led innovation. So what we're coming up with, and producing is the favorability or the probability rate of success is much higher than the past. And it's just helping improve overall product development, making it smarter and faster. And this kind of capability is coming to every industry, leveraging data and AI tools like this. And then ultimately, just another example here of like a better experience, so remember that was one of the three sort of vectors. This is just a tiny little use case out of a smaller, think about it, this is a smaller restaurant chain here in the US that sells salads. And now they've launched their own app and they have it branded as Salad AI. And so it collects a lot of data, personal data for the restaurant that helps them personalize the orders for consumers, and especially younger consumers. They're demanding this. They want hyper personalized recommendations. And it's a better, in some ways, value proposition than, say, going to a big traditional, hamburger chain. So, what it's recommending to you is based on your needs, your data sets, your flavor preferences, your nutritional goals. You may want high protein, low carb, high fiber. So what you're going to eat is going to be aligned to that. And so most of the restaurant chains are trying to move to something like this as you think about data and AI. And this is just one tiny little example here of how that's kind of working out. So before I go into what next, I thought maybe we just have a quick chat. I've talked a lot, but maybe there's some questions or maybe something we can discuss. Or maybe not.
Has anyone got any questions? You can just post in the chat if you got any questions for Barry that you'd like him to answer while we have a break for questions.
So Vanessa, if you see that chat, we'll just take a,
I will.
just let me know. But
Will do.
we covered a lot
Oh,
there.
here we
So
go.
sure.
So Tammy says she works at a digital agency where they're already using AI across our creative strategy and copy functions. Most of our clients are in the automotive and retail sectors, and we're now looking to go deeper, particularly in using AI to better understand and leverage campaign data to drive stronger outcomes. From your perspective, what should agencies like ours be doing to stay ahead, both in terms of internal innovation and in helping clients feel confident about adopting more AI-driven solutions? Nice
Really good
question.
question. Really good question, Vanessa, and thank you, Tammy. I'll just, we're dealing with that at Kantar, so we have the same question. So it's not too much different than the agency. I think just a couple points come to mind. One is more and more of advertising expenditures are moving to social media. I don't think anyone here is going to disagree with that. And also digital. So it's giving the platforms a lot more data and power. So let's say I'm a brand. Well, I'm spending less on traditional network TV and 15-second spots, and I'm spending much more on TikTok and Instagram and WhatsApp, et cetera. So most of those platforms, like Meta, for example, they're competing with agencies in a very big way. They're doing the brand metric tracking. They're doing sort of the overall media evaluation. So more and more agencies, the entire business model has to change a bit because now, you're competing more directly with, let's say, Meta, for example. That's just one example. And we see that every week, at Kantar in terms of what we're seeing and how we're working with clients and what we hear and what we see. So if you said, well, what's your differentiation? You're still going to have, a human, your human associates still matter. But increasingly, your data sets are really important here. So, what data do you have that is going to be providing differentiation versus what Meta can do? And just continue to evaluate your services versus what the big, top seven platforms are doing, because they're coming after the agency business. Every day, Google, Meta, Amazon, they're competing with agencies and want more of your dollars. So I think that's an important point. Secondly, you really have to lead in very big ways with data and AI. And we're seeing some of the best agencies now develop what's called brand brains, a brand brain. And so I'm going to take all of the data I might have on Procter and Gamble across everything that we're working with Procter and Gamble on. And we have incredible data sets. I'm making this up, of course, but but it does happen, obviously. And then you overlay a large language model that's been trained specifically for, let's say, the consumer and retail sector. And it's kind of your operating system for how
Mm.
you come up with campaigns, et cetera. So I don't want to talk too much, Vanessa, but those are a couple of things that come to mind there.
Thank you. And there's another one from Normandi. Do these AI systems specifically work for FMCG and retail industries, or can they be implemented on other industries? The Normandi works in a school and do the marketing there. So it's always refreshing to find out how AI can be implemented on the business side of the education.
No doubt. So the models, let's just take OpenAI. So that latest model they have, ChatGPT 4, they'll, like every industry is using that model in different ways. So it will be fine-tuned for the retail versus, let's say, automotive versus healthcare. But at the baseline, in terms of the overall model, it's still very similar. I think ChatGPT has done something with education that has just happened in the States. And I would highly encourage anybody in education to read it. They've been taking a lot of grief from parents, from teachers, and we're just seeing students, in a lot of modern trade countries, they're just using ChatGPT and not really maybe learning like they should. So ChatGPT now has a study mode. It was just added last week, I believe. And so when you go into ChatGPT 4, and I happen to have the paid version that you pay 20 bucks, no big deal. There's a study mode. And so my son, he just graduated from college. I wish he was using that study mode. I think he would have learned more. And it will still generate the output that you ultimately want, a paper on whatever, but it takes you through the critical thinking steps. And I think that's what all the models need to move to, is a study mode.
Great. And then I think we'll do one more question. So this is Sarah. She works at an AI WhatsApp powered solutions company. Do you think it's risky to be solely focused off the WhatsApp platform?
No, I mean, yes. I mean, you don't want to be just taking all of your learning and sort of signals from just one vertical, like, that. You have to be obviously whole brain, and because much of the innovation is outside of that very well established and innovative, I guess call it platform. So I think she's thinking about it the right way. So much so much of the work we do is bringing these brands learning from outside their industry. A lot of times we're bringing healthcare innovation or what's happening in other industries back to the consumer brands, because in many cases they're a year behind what's happening
Mm,
in healthcare. So it's a really good point. You want to have lateral learning is what people call it. I want to have lateral learning beyond my industry.
sure.
So let me keep it going here, Vanessa.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay. So let's have a look and see.
I've got it up here. Let me see.
Let's have a look. Yeah, I think keep going and then we can come back to some more questions afterwards.
Perfect. I don't have too much more, so won't kill you.
Great.
kill you with PowerPoint here. So what's next? Well, who knows what's next? It's kind of hard to determine that because every day this entire field is changing. But one way maybe to think about kind of what's next is just a very simple roadmap we put together, just looking at this year and the next 2 years. So we are still expecting lots more of advancement, innovation with the large language models. We're expecting ChatGPT 5 to drop at any moment. Could drop tomorrow. It's going to be definitely going to be a big improvement. There's a lot of anxious brands thinking about what that's going to look like, and the consumer use cases for that are can continue to explode. So, and it's still largely about five players that are leading all this that you would know. Certainly Google and Amazon, but again, Anthropic, Perplexity, etc. Secondly, we think there's just going to be more multi-model acceleration. So we're seeing lots, and what a multi-model means, like more than just tech. So we're seeing a lot of use cases now where shoppers, for example, they're in a store, they have the Chat GPT app, and they're trying on, in many cases, women are trying on jeans or clothes, and they're taking a picture or videoing themselves in the jeans with the mirror or however else, and they're asking, Chat GPT, how do these jeans look on me? And it's having a major influence on purchasing. So as these models become more voice enabled as well, Alexa, for example, is going to get a lot more helpful going forward with some of the innovations coming there. You'll be able to ask it all types of questions, and so much more of this is going to be proactive. We're used to, like, here's the prompt, I'll wait for the response. Where we're going very soon is you're just going to get the proactive answer ahead of time because all of your data feeds and your sort of rituals are telling the models kind of how you operate, and they can be much more proactive because of that. And then AI agents are definitely, we're already seeing that acceleration. Again, it's early days, but um, uh, we're approaching now the agentic web as more of these models roll out a browser that is built for basically this new era. We do think in 2026, next year, we're going to see a lot more. You could call it robotics, but companies like NVIDIA call it physical AI. We really do believe that we're going to have far more robotics in retail and then in homes. Certainly in the next 5 years, we think robotics will be at a price point where it's hard to determine exactly how that will play out, but especially with the work that NVIDIA is doing here and with Tesla, this, I think we're really going to start to see what this may look like. Our thesis is next year based on kind of what we're seeing. And then, we do think AGI, artificial general intelligence is arriving. We think it'll be gentle, if you will. We don't think like, hey, May 27th, 2027, there's going to be a big pronouncement that we've reached AGI. Everything changes. No, it's going to be, day by day. In fact, some people would say, a lot of experts would say this new ChatGPT 5 is kind of you're kind of getting to, artificial general intelligence, which simply means that the intelligence sort of, matches that of a human, or in many cases is accelerated than a human, and certainly is faster than what a human can do. So that's sort of a big picture time frame. I did want to mention on this agentic piece, I just want you to know Gartner, just showing you some data beyond Kantar, that's really their number one AI innovation for this year. And they were right. And we kind of said that too, just not as publicly. And Gartner's very good. But Walmart now has moved to an entire AI agent ecosystem. They've developed agents for customers, employees, their software and systems engineers, and even for sellers. It's just incredible what they're doing. And it's making the experience of all four of those stakeholders better, and it's driving better economics as well, because agents work at a different speed and don't require healthcare, et cetera. So it's kind of a big deal. We think as you think about this term agentic commerce, I just want you to remember that term, the agentic web, what it kind of looks like today. And this changes like every week, but we think there's four sort of levels of agentic commerce. Right now, discovery and research isn't just kind of what it used to be on Google. You can now have that AI mode with Gemini, Chat GPT. So we're seeing a lot more upper funnel uh, consumer behavior being infiltrated by the models. along with sort of find and compare, kind of moving down, that marketing funnel. And then as you get to buying, again, it's very early days. It's incredibly clumsy. I have executed this on Perplexities. I've bought some things there. It's kind of arduous, but you don't you can just have this agent search the web, search the world for the best, let's say, shoe you're looking for at this price point for this function, and it will execute it for you. It's really pretty amazing. Again, it's early days here, but it's going to get far better and faster going forward. And then we move to era 4, which is just autonomous commerce. And that's when really your weekly shopping will just be automated. It will just show up at your door if you're in a modern trade market, every 2 weeks. And it's more like a subscription model, what Amazon's doing now. But really, every retailer is going to have to move to this in some regard, and certainly brands are kind of preparing for that now. By the way, for Amazon, Prime Week, just to show an example, the traffic coming to Amazon from these generative AI models was up 4,000%. I mean, it's just amazing. I was on, let's say, Perplexity. I was on, Google Gemini, and boom, that traffic is converted over to Amazon, and the transactions completed there. Um, we think that could look different in the future. And Amazon is now stopping all agents from basically crawling their website, where Walmart's taking a completely different approach. Walmart is very open-ended. They want all the agents to consider them for purchase. We really believe commerce is going to change in very big ways over the next few years. Don't have time to cover that today, but also I just wanted to share with you this slide. We think that we've had a lot of this slide has traveled a lot more than we expected, but it's just looking at minutes per day by users. And now you have ChatGPT. Users are spending, up to 30 minutes a day now on that platform, surpassing Snapchat, which is just a bit mind bending when you think about Snapchat and how important that is to marketers, especially with Gen Z. And I think we're going to see probably it eclipse Instagram. Think about that. So there'll be other models that are behind this. We're not showing all the models, but just shows you how much time and investment is happening with just that one platform. By the way, ChatGPT by the end of this year probably will have 1 billion daily active users. Think about that. I mean, who has 1 billion daily active users? I mean, not a lot of brands. And I'm not going to go through all the slides because it's a lot here, but my point with sharing you the slide is all of this changes your P&L statement. And so for consumer brands, they're definitely seeing labor savings. So I see a lot of labor savings. And it also, is increasing my basically your margin. And then the savings in many cases are being redeployed into growth priorities. It could be marketing, could be innovation, but it's completely transforming the P&L. We don't have time to talk about all that today. It's fascinating. This is like a one pager from a 20-page deck on this topic. And I have an MBA in finance. I kind of really like seeing how all this plays out. You can see why companies are investing in all of this because it does pay out. And so we do think these new agents like Operator with OpenAI uh, bring big changes. They kind of get in the middle between the consumer and the purchase. And if you're Amazon, you may not like that. So we think there could be more disintermediation of retailers. This certainly affects retail media in very big ways, and so much more of the shopper funnel is being collapsed and being led by the agents. And because of that, you have to move to something called metadata marketing. That's just a term to remember. You're going to be hearing a lot more. Metadata marketing. That's really the way you go to market for your AX. Remember, we talked about the agent experience. So my agent experience is led by metadata marketing. My user experience, in large part, is led by traditional, more sort of human nomenclature type marketing. And then, I just want you to know most companies are trying to become sort of a frontier firm. And there's sort of three phases of that. And this is coming from Microsoft's latest Future of Work report, which is outstanding. And I've read a lot of it, and we've talked to their partner of ours, like they are probably with you. But right now we're in sort of phase 1. We have humans working with assistants like Microsoft Copilot. but we're starting to just now, just like right today, this is starting to happen where we're building out agents to help you with your workflows. And all of us are going to have at least, one agent that is our partner for getting our work done and automating more of our work every day. And then we move to phase three, this call it 2027. We'll just have to see how this plays out, where the human is still leading the workflow, but most of the work is being executed by this new digital species called AI agents. And that's kind of where you're moving to more of a frontier firm and an AI forward firm. People will say, are you an AI forward firm? Are you a frontier firm? And so that's kind of what's happening here. The rise of AGI, we're not going to spend a lot of time on that today, but I just want you to know it's just as that sort of slowly arrives, and I think we're in the early stages of it now. Some people would say this new model that I've referenced with OpenAI is kind of AGI, but you want to be future proofing your business for this, and you want at least 10% of your organization thinking about this. What does this mean to us? We're going to have to do things differently, right? We're going to have to change probably the business model. That's what we're helping companies with. And I just think it's something to have on your radar for sure. So just one last page, we could, sometimes we have like 4 pages of summary. I didn't want to just kill you with PowerPoint, but I think if you're a brand, number one, with all this, you have to win the algorithm. There's no question about it. Not just like sort of, traditional marketing, if you will. And you want to be leaning in and having pilots on this entire topic. Secondly, prepare for agents. They're arriving now. Some companies, legacy companies like Walmart, are down the path, and it changes your workflow. And you want, generally it's your HR department with your technology team together leading this. It's not just HR, it's not just the technology, it's both. And in fact, some companies have created a new position, and they'll call it, their chief technology and people officer, and they actually are overseeing both the HR function and the technology function. Think about that. It's just one way that organizational changes are happening. I think you have to move faster with your innovation. There's no question, because your competitors are going to be investing more in this entire topic. And the innovation engines that they're creating based on data and AI are going to be more accurate. They're not going to be perfect, but they will move faster. So we all have to be, preparing for that. And then I just think moving early versus later is better. You want more pilots. You want to be aware of leading use cases in your industry that are driving value for your competitors. And you want to upskill everyone. Upskilling, I didn't put that overtly on here, but regardless of what your company is doing, just you have to have, agency, and you have to kind of own your own personal development plan for data and AI. And it should involve, a couple of hours almost for sure every week of something you're trying to learn. And a lot of jobs right now, if you're at least in the US right now, you're interviewing for a role, a pretty senior role, six-figure role, you're going to be asked in many cases how you're thinking about AI agents. Have you created one? How would you go to market with your agents? How would it drive more value? And you kind of have to be in part a bit of a technologist in terms of what companies are looking for as they look for basically, AI native skill sets, if you will.